Good afternoon, Mr. Puri. Thank you for talking to us. We're delighted we are talking to you. Mr. Puri, we are doing this conversation in the backdrop of a pandemic. We're not yet in a post-pandemic era. Hopefully soon we will be. Uh, what have been personally your lessons and learnings in the last 18, 19 months? How has been the pandemic for you, both personally and professionally?
First of all, thank you, Annurag, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to interact with you. Well, the pandemic was, as we all know, a crisis that was never thought of, never anticipated, and a very serious crisis. And there have been many lessons that all of us have learned individually and as companies. I think the most important lesson that has come home during the pandemic is this whole issue of sustainability. You see, a lot of the challenges we face today, and pandemic, I would say, is one manifestation of that, are increasingly being related to climate change. And we saw during the pandemic how Mother Nature healed itself. We were able to see clear skies. We found the air's much cleaner. We found, migratory birds back, right? So it also establishes that if we do the right things, we can actually have climate recovery, which is the need of the hour. So I think that's to me the most important message. And certainly during the pandemic, while not directly related, I think this point about sustainability and this point about climate change has been a very big lesson for everybody, for me personally and for most enterprises. I think the second big lesson is the power of digital technologies. What did not happen for years has happened in weeks. And the manner in which society was able to pivot through digital technologies is simply amazing. And I'll give you one example. We are working with Niti Aayog to empower farmers in 27 aspirational districts. And during the lockdown, obviously, the physical training was not possible. We pivoted it to digital, and it was at scale. And the number of farmers involved is 3.8 lakhs. We created nearly 5,000 WhatsApp groups, some special apps, and the trainings were rendered digitally. And it was amazing when we did a check on the achievements at the harvesting of the Kharif crop. We found that the productivity that was estimated as per the program was actually delivered at that time. So it really shows the power of digital and the speed at which society has adopted digital. The third aspect it has brought up, the whole aspect of resilience. It has brought up the whole aspect of compassion. It has brought home the whole aspect of inequality in society. I think these are very important messages that came home when we saw the kind of difficulty that was faced by some sections of the society. I think these to me are three very, very important lessons.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. I agree with you. Sustainability and caring for the environment, both at an individual level and at an institutional level and a societal level, is important. We now know what happens in one part of the world impacts everybody. Let me now move into what you did in 2020 and continue to do in 2021 and build on it. See, you're a large organization, multiple businesses, huge workforce, and FMCG businesses are known to be like elephants, especially the size and scale that ITC operates in. How have you made ITC more agile? You talked of resilience, agility, especially more like tigers, ready to pounce upon the next opportunity, agile, and like the king of the jungle. What are you doing to be able to make ITC futuristic?
Okay. So firstly, let me step back and say that ITC has been a late entrant into FMCG. And as a late entrant, we were a challenger, we remain a challenger, and a challenger needs to be agile, needs to be very innovative. So that's how we have built it. In fact, I'm happy to say that we are perhaps the largest incubator of world-class Indian brands, having created 25 mother brands with a consumer spend of over 20,000 crores. So we are perhaps the largest incubator of Indian brands. And in the recent years, I think there are three important interventions that we made that were very useful and pivotal in helping us deal, for example, with the pandemic situations, which is a good demonstration and example of how agile the company is. So first and foremost, we press the button very hard on digital transformation. Second, you see, at the ITC Life Sciences and Technology Center, which is also been recognized by a third party research as the largest innovation centers in the private sector. Now, we made some strategic investments on some platforms which we believed were important for the future based on certain emerging opportunities. And the third, to make the organization and ensure that the organization rather remains even more nimble and agile, we tweaked our strategy of organization to strengthen consumer centricity and brought in greater amount of empowerment. So these three things that we did, it was prior to the 2-3 years prior to the pandemic, I think they were very useful. And I'll take this example of the pandemic, that's the best way to demonstrate agility, a black swan event. So as the pandemic unfolded, of course, the first thing was to take care of people, to help the people in our ecosystem, and we have many people in our ecosystem. We have a lot of small and medium enterprises who do require help. So that was, of course, the first step. We did recognize that in a black swan event, there will be a large disruption. There will be a lot of challenges, and equally there are going to be opportunities. So we will see sections where there is potentially a demand destruction, and we will see areas, particularly undercurrents which were there pre-COVID, can actually get very accentuated. And as the pandemic progresses or the pandemic ebbs, we'll find a further change in demand patterns. Some categories will moderate, those where demand had been destroyed may revive, and some newer segments emerging. So we realize that this next couple of years is going to be very dynamic, is going to change. So we took a very simple approach, straightforward approach. There's this whole issue of survive, there's a whole issue of revive, and then every enterprise wants to thrive, immaterial of the difficulties and challenges. So just bucket it into three parts, set the agenda for each of the three parts, where required, create some cross-functional teams fully empowered to take the decision. And as the pandemic unfolded, we saw that our insighting team heard the voice of consumer very closely, and the product development and manufacturing teams actually took the signals and converted into products, into things that consumers needed.
Give us an example, Mr. Puri.
So I think the best example here is in Savlon itself. Of course, in Savlon, the first task was to scale up things like hand wash and sanitizer.
Did you consult an astrologer before? Because it looks like this bet has worked big time. I mean, of course, you didn't know.
I wish I wasn't, we had those kind of insights, but hygiene is something that is getting important. It's an undercurrent in society. And as the society progresses, and also we know for human capital development, hygiene is an important facet. So that's why we created a hygiene platform. So we of course scaled up those capacities. Then consumers were looking for something to disinfect surfaces. So we launched the Savlon disinfectant spray. And then as winters came, consumers were looking for something to disinfect fabrics. So we launched the Savlon fabric disinfectant spray. Then consumers were complaining with sanitizers, hands are getting dry and skin is getting chappy. So we launched the Savlon moisturizing sanitizer. So all these insights came from what consumers were saying in the social media. We picked it up, and the picking up the signal and for the product to get out of the market, like Savlon disinfectant spray, was in weeks. In normal cases, it takes sometimes month for a product to be fully developed and then put into the market. It can even take a year, but this happened in a week's time. Let me take some other examples. As far as the supply chain is concerned, I think we have about 200 manufacturing locations. We have more than 24 marketing operations and more than 24 logistics hubs. 85% of them were operational within 10 days. But it was still not easy to reach the consumer. So we created some very interesting partnerships and very interesting solutions. So our sales team created this whole concept of ITC store on wheels, where the consumers were not able to go out. So we took the whole ITC portfolio of products, and we have a very wide portfolio to deal with most essential requirements of consumers. So we took it to places where consumers stay. We very quickly launched the ITC e-store. It was a very quick job, at least good enough for consumers to get staples and essential goods. Of course, later in the year, we revamped it because of the success, and more recently, it's a full-fledged store. We did partnerships with other agencies that could deliver to consumers. So some very interesting developments happened in the manner in which we reached out to the consumers also. And we were, during this year, able to put into the market more products than we normally do. We put out 120 products.
Yes, that's a lot of products in a record time. So tell us, why so many products, and was there a plan in place before COVID, or most of it happened in COVID? That's what I was thinking. 120 products. Why so many, and what's the future for them?
So some products were in the pipeline, not all of them, but because we had those platforms, we were able to create the solutions very, very rapidly. So aside from Savlon, for example, there was a lot of shift towards health and wellness and nutrition. People were looking for immunity. People were looking for healthier alternatives. So we launched a range of Be Natural beverages, healthier Be Natural beverages, and also interesting partnerships again to take it to the consumer. Now, as far as the future of these products are concerned, and as I said, we anticipated, and we're going with the belief that the next 2 years is going to be fairly dynamic. So there are segments where demand has already moderated, but many of these products also have broader applications. And just to give you an example, I spoke about the Savlon fabric disinfectant spray. It's also a fabric spray that works in monsoons. If you spray it on it, your clothes will not get musty as you keep it in the cupboards, etc. So they have got some broader applications, right? And it also, the insights also direct you towards newer opportunities. So during the lockdown, one of the solutions that people were looking for was an easier way to clean dishes. Because cleaning a dish in India requires a fair bit of scrubbing. So we've launched Nim Easy. It's got a fast lift-off action. So the effort in scrubbing is very minimal. It lifts off the grease on its own. So these were insights that came. We had launched a range of ITC MasterChef frozen snacks prior to the pandemic, we strengthened the portfolio because there was a lot of uptake for good, nutritious, healthy, and guilt-free snacking options. So this was a solution, and people were also looking for easier ways to cook a healthy and nutrition meal. So we launched pre-prepared gravies. So that makes the cooking experience much easier at home. So all these are areas where we believe there is opportunity going forward, and we will develop and invest. Yeah, there will be some pieces that may not be required in future, but we have to be ready.
Some will grow faster than the others.
Some will grow faster than the others. So, but it's I think, and I think some of it also has helped us to, like a brand like Savlon, which was although growing quite well prior to the pandemic itself, but I think the salience of the brand
Came alive
much more, and that's something that will sustain.
Absolutely. I think, luckily I have experienced almost all of the products except washing dishes, I can say that. But let me ask you a question. Health and immunity have become a big focus for individuals, for society, for community. There is a raised awareness. And some of the things you talked about kind of cater to that. Tell us, as we go forward, what is ITC likely to do? I'm not going to expect that you'll tell me all your future plans, but give us a peep into how will you capitalize on this very important need of having health and immunity as part of everything you do.
So we have invested in a platform of health and wellness in the ITC Life Sciences and Technology Center, and there are already many products in our portfolio that deal with it. Very recently, we have launched Ashirvad organic range of atta and pulses. Now, Ashirvad is one example. Then Ashirvad also has got gluten-free atta. It has got a range of superfoods, which has got multi-millet mixes. Right. We have a set of Be Natural beverages that have been launched in the market. Some have been launched in partnership with some partners. So this is an area that we will continue to invest behind. Our Farmlight range of biscuits, they have no maida. They're all made from atta. They have goodness of seeds. There is a range that has no sugar, no maida, no artificial sweetener. So many of these options are there in our.
And nutrition is an important part of health. I can say that because I do consume some of the products that you have. I've lost weight by using gluten-free products and other, completing my sleep and, walking. But food is a large part of your health. Now, let me also ask you, I interviewed you 3.5 years back, more like 4 years back, and we talked about hospitals. It was stated in your report, and you said at some stage, and when ITC makes an entry, of course, you do it at a scale, you look at an impact, you try to be the best in that segment, be leadership. Now, the healthcare as a domain needs even more focus. We need capability building. Our infrastructure is good, but it can be better. I'm being polite. Have you considered fastening, bringing in the healthcare business? Because I know that was one of your stated goals you mentioned in the interview to me.
Yes, we had, as I said that time, this is an area that we will study in detail because it's a new area for us and then decide. So we decided earlier itself that we will approach it from a not-for-profit basis. And this pandemic certainly gave us a lot more insights and information of the challenges, and we did, and that also happened because we in our own ways wanted to make our own humble contribution to help society deal with the challenges of COVID and the healthcare infrastructure. We played a lot of role in getting oxygen supplies and other infrastructure. So we learned a lot about the challenges as part of the experience. So we've announced that we are going to launch an integrated rural healthcare initiative as a not-for-profit basis. We have a team that is developing it, and we will start taking some steps, maybe perhaps by the next quarter. And it's going to be kind of a hub and spoke model, and also leverage the power of digital, because all the expertise will not be available in rural, and digital becomes very important for delivery
Giving
of
access to the best doctors anywhere.
Yeah, to create a right.
And now there is an acceptance of telemedicine, there is a trend of teleconsulting
Absolutely.
in healthcare.
Absolutely. So that's the approach we are taking, and progressively we will scale it up. And
absolutely. Now let me ask you. You talked about consumer insights. You talked about listening to what's happening on social media and using that to be able to bring products and services that help the consumers and fulfill the needs. Now, in your way, what are the top 3 things that has changed in a consumer over the last 18, 19 months, which are irreversible, at least for the foreseeable future?
So to me, 3 very clear trends are there. One is the consumers are increasingly getting aware of the issue of climate change and sustainability. They are concerned. The concern for environment is definitely heightened, and consumers are beginning to look for products or products from companies that are making a difference to the environment. Second, I think the concern for hygiene and sanitation is at an elevated level. Third, the interest for nutrition, health and wellness products, healthier eating options, I think is something that is becoming more and more pronounced today. And I'll add one more trend. I think again it actually relates to the first one of sustainability. There is again I think the undercurrent of opting for natural products is also getting accentuated.
100%. I agree with you. I personally could fit into a consumer who's more conscious and trying to do more in all those areas.
In fact, this was just to add to it. You know, this whole piece of naturals was a trend that we had picked up even before the pandemic, and that's again an investment area. That's what led us to acquire Nimile.
Yes.
So it's a neem-based floor cleaner, and now we are developing a portfolio under Nimile. Neem Easy is part of that portfolio. Then you have Neem Wash.
Let me go back to your earlier days in ITC. You know, most people see you as somebody who headed the tobacco business, the FMCG business, which you did, and clearly you understand. At one point they were 60%, then became 80% of the revenues of the ITC in India. But you were also the CEO and MD of ITC Infotech, and you pursued a very aggressive strategy of acquisition. I remember an acquisition that you did, I don't know, 15 years back, that was $25 million, which used to be a big deal. I'm not sure about the year. Now, clearly, you see, while you're doing innovation in your center, you see entrepreneurs are trying to solve problems and innovation is happening. So, do you plan to create an incubator for startups which are strategically valuable in areas like agriculture, like food nutrition? And do we see more acquisitions from Mr. Sanjiv Puri at ITC?
Okay. So first, as far as setting up an incubator center is concerned, let me say that, you know, I think ITC itself per se is in a way an incubator. We have incubated a large number of brands in a short period of time and at scale, right? So, in fact, we call our the managers in the company preneurs, professional entrepreneurs.
I like that. I call them entrepreneurs, but you call them preneurs. That's even better.
So, professional entrepreneurs, so who have the opportunity to create categories, create products from scratch, take it to the market, scale it up, and leveraging the institutional strengths of ITC. Right? So, we've incubated many products. Now the focus is on also, besides developing products, on incubating digital enabled business models.
Absolutely.
So just to give you some examples, for example, ITC Mars, which is going to build onto the ITC eChopal, which is the ITC meta markets for advanced agriculture and rural services.
Which has been there for more than 2 decades.
eChopal has been there. This is going to come in maybe in the next 6 to 9 months. We've done the pilots there. We've launched classmates.com, which gives you an opportunity to customize the cover of your notebook. So some examples of digital enabled models that are being incubated, and there is some more in the pipeline which we will launch over a period of time. Yes, I think startups have a very important role to play. They're very creative and innovative entrepreneurs. They're truly inspiring. So we have our engagement with these startups. In some cases, we're working together, seeing how we can create value. In some cases, it's investment. So both of this is being done, and I think our belief on incubation is actually working with them and helping them to scale up. It's really doing the job along with them, and that works well because we engage in areas where we have some capability and where we have some infrastructure. So that's the way we approach it. We are working with many of them. And as far as the inorganic piece is concerned, yes, we have identified inorganic as an important pillar of our growth in areas that align to our strategic priorities. Although bulk of what we have created has been organic, but over the last few years, we have made some strategic acquisitions. We had Savlon, then we had Nimail, and more recently Sunrise. And we are absolutely looking out for such opportunities as and when they arise. We will definitely like to participate in that and use it as another lever of growth. But we are very clear it has to be a good quality of asset, it has to be value accretive. Then only we will go for it.
Fantastic. Now, when you build businesses, the critical thing is you build brands. You bought Savlon because it was a brand, right? Otherwise, you can create your own formulation. Now, the digital economy, the pandemic economy has created D2C brands. Direct to consumer, digital to consumer, and some of them become huge. They're multi-billion-dollar valuations. They have the trust of the consumers in a very short span time, and the future looks bright. What do you have to say on these D2C brands? How do you see you approaching D2C? I know your brands are becoming digital first, while there is an omni-channel strategy and your distribution is world class, your supply chain is world class. But what is your view on D2C brands?
I think what we have seen is a very big change, a very big transformation, and what the entrepreneurs have done is truly commendable. And there are lessons that we have to all take back from such entrepreneurs, and that's what we will also build on as we go forward. Of course, digital first is the first part of the journey, but beyond that, how do we move to platform plays? How do we move to D2C? These are some areas that we are examining, and some initial interventions I mentioned from our perspective of platform plays, ITC Mars. The classmates.com is again another intervention to create a direct to consumer customized space. I think the difference that will be there between us and say a standalone startup, we already have certain assets.
Absolutely.
We have brands, we have R&D infrastructure, we have a
distribution which is omni-channel.
Distribution which is omni-channel. So we have to leverage our legacy assets and use that to create D2C solutions. And that's the approach that we will be taking.
Beautiful. Now, let me ask my last business question before I get into more personal and philosophical questions. In the last 18 months, ITC, as per the ADEX, also became India's largest advertiser, largest spender on media advertising because of the number of products, services you launch. Now, brands are very important, as I earlier asked. What do you think? At the end of the day, you're a brand owner. I mean, of course, there are assets, physical assets, distribution, so on and so forth. And you talked about sustainability, planet, purpose already upfront. Tell me, in your view, because you've been with ITC for 35 years, you had a career before that, and you've been able to revitalize ITC, bring fresh energy. When you approach brand building from where you sit, how do you approach it in this millennial first, digital economy first? You already outlined D2C, but in your view, how do you see, for example, earned media has become big, PR has become big. Of course, advertising will always be mainstay in building brands. But how did this, of course, 120 new brand launches, product launches, but what do you make of the change scenario vis-a-vis building brands? What has changed? You already outlined the consumer trends that are becoming bigger and bigger. But in your mind, because you've been with the company and some of the brands that the company has, whether it's the tobacco business, FMCG business, for a while. So what has changed in your view?
So, see, fundamentals of building great brands, I do not think have changed. The fundamentals remain the same. Every brand that needs to succeed needs to have a purpose, needs to serve some need of a consumer, provide him a superior solution. And every brand needs to be invested upon to engage with the consumers. Every brand needs to bring to the consumer a product that delights him. So fundamentals don't change. Some of the tools with digital have changed. Some of the tools as in the manner in which you engage with consumers, the manner in which consumers can buy in, right? So some of the tools and mediums of engagement have changed, but I think the fundamentals have not changed. And just like in the past, one had to read trends. Today also you have to read trends. The other piece, because of digitization and because of the manner in which society is progressing, I think change is much faster. So you need to be far more agile today in picking up the trends, in picking up the developments that are happening, so you can continue to strengthen and build your brand. It's a much more competitive world today than it was earlier. Already, before the startup and the D2C brands came, there was already hyper competition. So this is multiplying the hyper competition. So all these factors actually lead to a lot more dynamism and agility in the enterprise and in the life cycle of a brand. So organizations have to repurpose and align to these emerging tools and these need for speed going forward.
Absolutely. Now let me now shift the gears and get into leadership issues. Now, in your view, what is the biggest leadership impact you had on ITC? Especially it's been a while now that you've been the chairman. You can see the kind of optimism, growth, and you're focusing on the future and little long term, because in the short term, sometimes stock market reacts differently, but you're really taking a long term view on things. What has been in your view, your biggest imprint in terms of leadership?
Well, I think one is that we have significantly embraced digital, really accelerated the journey in the last few years, and it is not specific to a business, it is across businesses.
And across the value chain.
Across the value chain, right from operations to marketing to commerce to even products. So it's right across. So I think the digital transformation has been significant. Second, although ITC has been a leader in sustainability, I think recognizing the global challenges of sustainability, we brought out our Sustainability 2.0 agenda last year, which is much more bolder and ambitious. I think that's a significant. The third is that we have been able to create an enterprise that is much more consumer centric, much more empowered and therefore agile. And many mechanisms have been created for that. One is the strategy of the organization. We have, for example, we have constituted last year what is known as the Young Digital Innovators Forum. So we've got 20 people, 20 very talented managers, young managers who've been in the company for less than a few years, mentored by a global thought leader. They are ideating on what digital interventions
This is almost like reverse mentoring.
Absolutely. And we have created a Digi Next, which is a senior leadership council, to work with these guys so we can bring the ideas to life. Right?
Absolutely.
So some of these
and the leadership strength, whether in all your businesses. I mean, I look at the leaders of some of your businesses, and
yeah, we've also deepened. We've
Yeah,
deepened significantly the talent pipeline. We've significantly deepened, and I think the last area I would talk about is that from a portfolio perspective, whether it's our newer businesses or whether it's our traditional businesses where we have leadership. So even in traditional businesses, we have charted out what we want to do, not merely from scaling up and fortifying what we are doing, but identified new vectors of growth in traditional businesses, as also revitalizing the portfolio in our newer businesses like FMCG or even the information technology piece.
Thank you so much, Mr. Puri. Now let me ask you, where do you get your inspiration from when you're not working? And I don't imagine a time chairman of ITC who's charting new territory, creating a new organization. I'm sure you talk to preneurs. Preneurs are always thinking about their work because they love what they do. But when you're not working, what are you doing?
Well,
so you don't play golf. I hardly see you ever at parties. So clearly you do other pursuits which keep you energized.
well, we probably, first of all, do not meet that often because I stay in Calcutta and you stay in Delhi. So that's one reason. But that aside, you see, I spend time in doing some exercises, some reading, and I certainly like to also watch programs, whether in digital or the conventional medium, about seeing what the young tech-enabled entrepreneurs are doing. So those are the stories that are very truly inspiring to me today, because that's also giving us a good idea on how things will unfold in the future.
Absolutely. Now let me also do a rapid fire with you. First of
Okay.
all, an ITC product that you can't live without in the day.
Well, at the moment it is the Savlon moisturizing sanitizer.
Good. Leaders you look up to, current or past?
Well, right now I look up to our technology entrepreneurs, the startup entrepreneurs. These are the people that inspire me a lot these days. So I really study and see what they are doing.
Okay. In the past, leaders who inspired you?
Well, there have been many leaders that have inspired me, and I won't name one person particularly, because there is a lot I have learned and from many leaders, whether within the company or outside the company. So I won't really pin down to just one.
Your favorite book that you recently read?
Well, favorite is difficult to say, but one very interesting book that I've enjoyed reading in the recent past is about rethinking competitive advantage. That's for the digital world, by Ramcharan.
I read the book. It's a fascinating read and gives you a good framework.
Yes, absolutely.
And at a scale.
Absolutely.
One food that you can't live without in the day? Okay. My last question to you. Mr. Puri, you achieved so much. You're an IIT Kanpur alumnus. You've been the most distinguished alumni. You serve on the CII councils. You lead multiple councils there. You're widely respected, and the best is ahead of you. Is there a bucket list that you have over the next 5 years?
Well, I'm my enthusiasm and passion today is about in what I'm doing, and more importantly, what I would like to see is the newer businesses of ITC In the traditional businesses, we already have leadership. I would like to see our newer businesses get to leadership. So that's what really motivates me.
Good. My last question as I wrap up. You made a lot of impact in 2020, and it was not just about the growth of your company, launching new product, but you helped the society a lot in COVID. If you had to quantify that impact, I know whether it was in oxygen delivery, that the oxygen that came from Singapore, right, the first set of, or the, helping your ecosystem of vendors, partners, SMEs, or your employees. Give us, what was the, if you had to quantify your impact of 2020, what would that be?
Are you saying in financial terms?
In whatever terms. I think more in terms of, helping the society, helping.
Well, so the assistance that we gave to society has been multifaceted, and each time aligned to what was needed. You see, in the first wave, for example, every kitchen, whether in our manufacturing location or hotel, was making meals and gave it to people who needed it. Every location, every state that we were present in, we were making hygiene products available to those who could not afford it. In the second phase, the focus was primarily on the healthcare infrastructure. So we airlifted cryogenic containers. We have donated about 22 oxygen generators to various hospitals, concentrators, and other equipment that was required for hospitals either in urban areas or rural areas. We did our bit in communicating, the safety protocols, and we had coined a term called SMS. Safe distancing, social distancing, masking, and sanitization. And this actually caught on quite well. And we used it for our employees, we used it for our ecosystem. We worked with our business partners to get insurance for people who did not have it, whether our distributors or people who provide logistics services. So it's been multifaceted. It's difficult to really put one single quantification, but in whatever way we could help our employees, our ecosystem, we've kind of tried to do that proactively.
One word that describes the future for you and ITC. They're intertwined.
I think for ITC, the best is yet to come.
Thank you, Mr. Puri, for talking to us.
Thank you. It's a
I
pleasure.
hope you and ITC continue to make impact, and I'm sure you talk to sustainability, digital, and serving the society. I think all will come together in a way to create both sustainable businesses and an impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Same here.